So, the toddler years. Now, as amazing and as magical as the toddler years are, they can be very difficult to navigate at times, especially in those early years when our baby first transitions into toddlerhood. They start finding their feet, they start asserting their independence, pushing their boundaries and testing their limits. It can be quite frustrating and difficult to navigate. So in this video, I'm going to provide you with 5 tips that can hopefully make your life a little easier as you navigate through toddlerhood. So number 1, and that's accepting that boundary pushing is perfectly normal, and actually it's a really important part and healthy part of our little ones' development. Our little ones are just starting out in this world, so they need to push these boundaries to find out where the limits are. They need to find out how the world works, and it's on us as their parent to do our best to be calm, present and responsive when they're doing this, so we can teach them what appropriate behaviour looks like during these tougher parenting moments. And I think the biggest tip for parents is to not take their child's boundary pushing behaviour personally. It's not a reflection of your parenting, you haven't done anything wrong, it's a perfectly healthy and normal part of your little one's development. And of course, when we don't take it personally, we put ourselves in a really good place to respond positively when they are pushing those boundaries, because we're going to be in the best place possible to show them where the limits are, to teach them what acceptable behaviour looks like. Of course, in comparison, if we react quickly, if we're negative, then likely we're going to be yelling, we're going to be shaming and shunning, and in that moment we just pass up on an opportunity to teach them what acceptable behaviour looks like. We don't show them where the limits are other than installing fear into them in that moment. And as I mentioned, the biggest tip for this is to accept that it is normal, but it's on us as their parent to provide them with that guidance. Number 2, and this is actually a really hard one to hear, but a very important one and something I'm sure we're all working on day to day, and that's the importance of being able to control our own emotions. Because throughout toddlerhood, our child is going to have emotional outbursts. They are going to have meltdowns and tantrums because their tower fell down, or because you served them breakfast in a red bowl and they wanted it in the blue bowl. And it's going to be frustrating, and it's going to be on us to remain calm and to remain patient, to actually model and teach our child how to navigate through these emotional outbursts. Because I think quite often along the way, society assumes that children will just magically get there. Traditionally we've put children into a naughty corner, we've shunned them and we've shamed them for getting upset because they want their breakfast in a blue bowl but you've served it in a red bowl. But we need to appreciate that our 18-month-old, our 2-year-old, our 3-year-old doesn't know about frustration, anger, upset. We need to teach it to them. And obviously when these opportunities arise, if we're being taught to shut them down, if we're being taught to yell at them, to shun them and to shame them in these moments, then how on earth are they going to learn how to regulate their emotions, how to deal with this anger and this frustration in the future? So obviously if we take steps to work on ourselves, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in this video, if we can take steps to work on ourselves so we can better regulate our emotions before responding to our child, and that might simply be finding that pause before responding to our child in a stressful moment. So if you feel your child bubbling away and you know an emotional outburst is going to come, just take a step back, pause, make sure you're regulated before engaging with your child, and then you're really well placed then to acknowledge their feeling, to acknowledge their negative feelings, their upset and their frustration. Let them know that it's perfectly valid to feel these feelings, and actually by doing this, by being calm and present in these stressful moments, we're just subconsciously modelling how they can deal with these situations in the future. Number 3, and it sort of echoes what I mentioned in point number 2, and that's that we need to ensure our expectations of our child are realistic. Certainly throughout the life of our child, but in toddlerhood this is really, really important, because often we want to rush our child, we want to rush them to their milestones, we will assume that they're going to be able to regulate their emotions like an adult, we assume they're going to be able to deal with certain situations that they've never experienced before, and we sometimes expect this overnight, but it's all about repetition. And if we can work on ourselves and ensure that we're a lot calmer and a lot more patient when engaging with our child, then we have more chance of helping them get there. And this goes a long way in helping parents with their own frustrations as well, because quite often over on Instagram I'm talking to parents via DM about some frustrations they're having, and it all comes back down to just ensuring we're setting realistic, developmentally age-appropriate expectations for our child. It might not help us all of the time, but certainly it will help reduce some of those unnecessary frustrations when it comes to expecting our little one to regulate their emotions, when it comes to expecting our child to control their impulses, and also pushing their boundaries. I'll give you a funny little example. So he was banging on the door, so I went over to him and I said, "Luca, can we please stop banging on the door?" And he stopped, and then he got his little finger and he started tapping on the door. And I said, "Luca, I asked you to stop banging on the door." And he said, "I did. I'm now tapping the door." And in that moment I almost burst out laughing, but obviously I had to reframe the boundary I set. If we want to bang something, we've got a perfectly good drum kit upstairs, let's go and play on the drum kit. But the fact that it's perfectly normal and our little ones are going to do this, they're going to try and navigate around those boundaries we set. And I'll actually create videos around setting boundaries in the future and how I'm having success and my wife and I are having success with actually setting clear statements. So let's say it comes to turn off the telly and you say to your child quite naturally, "Can you turn off the telly please?" And that then enters into a huge power struggle. And actually when you take a step back and think about it, what you've done, you haven't told your child to turn off the telly, you've asked them a question. "Can you turn the telly off please?" And well, no. The 3-year-old wants to watch Paw Patrol. He doesn't want to turn off the telly. Whereas if you reframe it and maybe give a bit of prior warning so our little ones have a chance to comprehend what's coming, instead of saying, "Can you turn off the telly please?" you can say, well, in my case, Luca, in 5 minutes when dinner's ready, we are going to turn off the telly. And that is a clear statement. It removes the ambiguity and the confusion from the little one, and that we've had far more success in setting boundaries and setting clear expectations for him that way. So number 4 is we look to navigate through toddlerhood, and that's developing the ability to say sorry. Now I actually go quite deep into this in a previous video I created, so I'll link to it above, so definitely check that out. The importance of modelling repair with your child and capturing these moments where you maybe regret your interaction with them as opportunities to teach them all about saying sorry. So number 4 is developing the ability to say sorry. Now this is really important because it makes us accountable for our actions. We're only human, and we need to teach our child that people make mistakes. But not only do we need to teach them that people make mistakes, we need to model that when we make mistakes we're accountable for them and that we can apologise and take accountability for them. That's really, really important. But also in the same breath it gives us that space to be authentic with our little one, to acknowledge that the perfect parent doesn't exist. We are going to be low on patience, we are going to be tired, we are going to be exhausted, and this obviously is going to maybe lead to us being a little bit snappier around our child. We might have, as I said, less patience, so we might yell more often. But when these moments arise, we can capture these moments as opportunities to teach our child. We might not do it every time, but just remaining conscious of this will help us, especially when these moments occur during those toddler years. Number 5, and that's being able to admit when you need a break. Now this is really, really important because naturally we might see this as being selfish, but if we're low on patience, if we're low on motivation, then and we're exhausted and tired, then we're just going to be snappy with our little one, and it's going to negatively impact the time we spend with them and maybe even our relationship with them. But if we are able to hold our hands up and communicate with our partner, our friends, our family, and just say, "Look, I need a break, I need an hour, 2 hours, an afternoon, maybe even a night away, just to take that time for yourself." Yes, you need to be selfish, but you're being selfish to positively impact the relationship with your child and even the relationship with those around you as well. And that's it, 5 tips to help you navigate through toddlerhood. I really hope you found some value in this video, but let's remember, toddlerhood really is a magical time, but at the same time it is going to be tough and it is going to be frustrating at times. So do let me know in the comments if you found this helpful. Hit like, hit subscribe, and as ever I'll be back next week with another parenting video.